Good evening. It is Sunday, November 15th, 2020, and coming to you live from Lonely Tree Media Studios in Yakima, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show. I'm your host, David Lamm. With me, as always, is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
What's going on, everybody?
We're streaming live on YouTube. We are on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show, and you can send us an email, lambsports@gmail.com. Please check out our webpage, lambsports.com. You can find links to past shows and the current trivia question on there. Usually post that the next day. Not always, but I'm the only social media coordinator I have, so it is what it is. Yeah, I do the best I can. As always, the first part of our show is brought to you by The Range in Yakima. The Range, at 34,000 square feet, is an all-inclusive facility offering firearm training, retail firearm sales and supplies, full gunsmithing and repairs, custom builds, and Cerakote services all under one roof. Open Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 7. Go see our friends at The Range, 1701 Garrettson Lane in Yakima. The phone number is 509-571-1449. The Range. Educate, equip, and empower. So, we have some stuff to talk about today. And if you weren't flexible with your sports schedule, you need to get that way quickly because things are changing. COVID has affected everything right at the moment. College football, not so much pro football the last few days, but college football is suffering a lot of postponements and cancellations. We also have a Masters champion that we're going to talk about. And the Ducks played Washington State and struggled for a half, basically. The whole first half was a struggle. Was it? Am I wrong?
It was a struggle.
It was a struggle. So I thought everyone would like this, that Atlanta announced its plans to reopen the city since they have a 28-3 lead on COVID-19. So little dig at our friends in Atlanta. Not that we have any, but if we did, we don't anymore. So we're going to have a trivia question. We're going to start with that trivia question. Brought to you by Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. 2 tasting rooms to choose from: the Vineyard, 3827 Fletcher Drive, and downtown at 210 Oak Street. Go to stavenstone.com and check out their gift baskets, perfect for the wine lover in your family. For more information, call 541-946-3750. That's 541-WINE-750. Or email them at info@stavenstone.com. Stavenstone Wines with Personality. Are you ready for a Masters trivia question?
Of course.
Okay, because it's golf related, because the Masters just finished up today, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I thought we'd ask a green jacket question.
Great.
I know, right? Because you're so up on golf.
Yeah, I'm a real big golf head over here.
I know. And golf trivia especially. So and I don't expect you to know the answer, but maybe someone knows the answer, but it's an interesting question. Since the Masters started in 1934, what player has won the most major championships without winning the Masters? Ooh. So that's the U.S. Open, the British Open, and the PGA Championship. Right? Those are the other 3 majors in addition to the Masters. So this person never won the Masters, but he has the most majors of a person that has never won the Masters since the Masters started in 1934.
Interesting.
So everybody gets to think about it. You got about 45 minutes, give or take, and we'll get you the answer. So speaking of the Masters, Dustin Johnson was wire-to-wire winner. The world's number 1 ranked player. He won his first green jacket by winning the Masters tournament at Augusta National in Augusta, Georgia today. He fired a 4 under par, 68 to finish at -20. He's the first golfer ever to reach 20 under par at the Masters. Australian Cameron Smith and South Korean Sungjae Im were tied for second, 5 shots back at -15. Johnson's green jacket comes with a winner's prize of $2,070,000. That's not a bad payday. I know, right?
Yeah, so, it's all right. It's all right.
So,
what does third place get?
You know what? I can tell you that if you give me just a second. I can absolutely tell you what happened. Hold on here.
Okay.
You know what? We got to go to our media guy here, and
our media guy.
Our media guy happens to be me. And yeah, I know, right? You think that it would be a lot easier.
Best media guy in the biz.
Best media guy in the biz. Third. Well, so here's the problem. Two guys tied for second, which means second and third place money get pooled together and split between the two guys.
It's not a bad deal.
Okay, so each of them got $1 million for finishing tied for second. So There was a $2 million prize total between second and third place. The fourth place finisher, Justin Thomas, he received a cool $552,000 for finishing fourth. So the question you have on your mind, and I know you have it because I have it, is what happens further down the list?
How much did Tiger win?
So Tiger,
he was like 20th or something like that last time I looked.
Tiger finished tied for 38th. He had a 10 on the par 3 12th hole. He hit 3 balls in the water.
Oh, geez.
Today and finished with a 76 today. Yeah, he was 5 under after 2 rounds, about 4 shots off the lead, and then not so much. But yeah, he finished with $50,600 for finishing 38th.
Not bad. Get out, get to play some free golf.
That's what I'm thinking. Cool people. I mean, there was an entry fee, but other than that, I mean, if you finished in the top 13, you won over $200,000 each.
That's not a bad deal.
That's not a bad day. I mean, you figure.
I mean, yeah, you got to win a bunch of other tournaments to get to this point, but it's not a bad deal.
Yes, you have to have won something to get here, so there's that. But I mean, still, that's not a bad. It's 4 days. You figure what 5-hour rounds, or probably 6-hour rounds, because there's a lot of delay and people take their time.
Yeah.
And, guys like Tiger look at a putt from 70 angles, so you figure 6 hours a round, 4 rounds, 24 hours worth of work. Right? So you do the math, and then of course there's probably some practice on top of that, and putting and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I still figure it's pretty good per hour. I mean,
this is also your chosen career path, so I don't have any sympathy for how much golf you have to play.
Right. I figure if you're making over $1,000 an hour, you're doing something. You're in the right field. So
yeah, that's not a bad business.
It's not it's a good racket.
I'll tell you something that came up while we were watching, because we turned it on this morning. We were watching a little bit of it early.
Yeah.
And it's kind of irrelevant to the scores and standings, but we were wondering, do you have to wear a hat?
No.
Everyone is wearing a hat.
No, you don't have to wear a hat. However, contrary to popular belief, at Augusta today it was going to be 80 for a high temperature. And as well as I do, especially me, certain people, you're going to sweat.
Right.
And the last thing you want is a bead of sweat rolling in your eye while you're trying to swing.
Sure.
Right. So
the hat makes sense. We just saw that everyone was wearing them, and we thought, is this some sort of requirement?
Well, no,
you have to wear it.
No, not at all. You can absolutely not wear a hat. But I can't remember the last guy who didn't wear a hat. I want to say I remember Nick Faldo back in the 90s not wearing a hat. But then again, that was about the time we were swapping over from visors to hats.
Right.
Because the visor was the golf apparel of choice.
Oh, yeah.
And so now if you watch Tiger this week and you see the Tiger Woods collection shirts that he's wearing, a little plug for a local Northwest company, but because they need the help.
Yeah.
But the shirts he was wearing, the collarless shirts, they're buttoned. They look just like a polo, but they don't have a collar.
It's a blade collar.
They're gorgeous. They were beautiful. And he wore there was a purple one. There was kind of like an olive drab green one. And then he wore the traditional red on Sunday that he always wears. I can't remember what the other color was. Well.
That red, by the way, is called Victory Red.
Well, of course it is.
It's his specific shade of red that he owns. It's only on Tiger gear.
That does not surprise me. I don't think it should surprise anyone else. Okay, so enough Masters, enough golf, enough of Tiger, I think, for now. Let's talk about college football. And real quickly, on Saturday, top 25 action from college football. Number 6, Florida. The 63-35 winner over Arkansas. I'm in the wrong page. You're going to have to give me just a second here. I have the wrong scores up. I have that one. But I don't have all the top 25. On Friday the 13th, Cincinnati, number 7 Cincinnati over East Carolina 55-17. On Saturday, number 2 Notre Dame 45-31 at Boston College. Number 9 Miami squeaked one out again at Virginia Tech 25-24. Number 10 Indiana remained unbeaten with a 24-0 shutout of Michigan State. Number 13 Wisconsin went to the Big House and beat Michigan 49-11. That's their worst loss in the Big House in some 60 years. Uh, Marshall, number 16, Marshall escaped. Oh, escaped Middle Tennessee, 42-14. Number 19, SMU is the only top 25 team to lose this weekend. They lost to Tulsa, 28-24 at Tulsa. And number 20, USC pulled off a come from behind again late in the fourth quarter to win 34-30 at Arizona. Number 22, Liberty. I said Liberty. You heard me. Their 58-14 win over Western Carolina. By the way, that was Western Carolina's first game this year. So Liberty's 8-0. Western Carolina was playing their first game. I don't think that's fair. We can't. We'll talk about it later. Number 23, Northwestern, a 27-20 win over Purdue. Number 25, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns are 7-1 with a 38-10 victory over South Alabama. Postponed, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, so maybe I'll just hold on to the postponed. But some things. Let's talk about the Ducks.
Let's talk about them.
Let's talk about the Ducks. So the Ducks went to Washington State, a place they hadn't won the last two times they'd visited, and they pulled off a win. They looked ugly for about a half. Is ugly the right term?
Ugly is not the right term. Disjointed. It just didn't seem like things like they were making the right decisions or they're making the right plays. And Washington State was riding this really big wave of momentum, like in a really big high, and that's all it was. But they had to come back down to earth, and the Ducks corrected it.
So Oregon, number 11 Oregon, overcame 3 first-half turnovers to beat Washington State 43-29 yesterday at Martin Stadium in Pullman. Tyler Shuck, I don't know how you pronounce it. I've heard it both ways, and I have no idea. Shuck?
Yeah, well, the guys on the broadcast don't always know what the hell they're talking about.
That's true. Tyler Shuck. Okay, let's call it that. I want to hear him pronounce it. I haven't heard him pronounce it yet.
Sure.
Tyler Shuck threw for 312 yards and 4 touchdowns after the first. He threw the first touchdown early on their first drive. 15 plays, 92 yards, just under 6 minutes. They looked fantastic. Drove right down the field, scored a touchdown. And then he threw the interception and the 2 fumbles and 3 turnovers, all recovered by the way, Aiden, what's his last name? Aiden Hector, walk-on freshman defensive back. Yeah, for Washington State. He had all 3 turnovers from Oregon. He 2 fumble recovers and the interception. I don't think.
Yeah, he was in the right place, right time.
He really was. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't make the fumbles happen, but he happened to be there when the ball popped out. And the interception was a tip. A
tip. Yep.
Yeah. So he was definitely in the right place at the right time. Made him look good. That's all I'm saying. You're gonna get a scholarship.
He finished the plays.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Anyway, Wazoo went ahead 19-7 late in the first half, literally with 24 seconds left in the first half. Washington State scores a field goal, and there's 24 seconds left in the half. Somehow, Oregon comes out and with a huge pass play, Tyler Shuck with a huge pass play down the field, and then the option to go for the run. CJ Verdell with the run. With like 3 seconds left, or I don't know, there's like 6 seconds left. They run the football.
It was an unusual choice.
Whoa!
I thought they would have been better served to throw the ball and try and get 2 shots at it.
But they got it in, and that was a momentum changer. I mean, that was a big deal because that made it 19-14, and now you felt like, okay, well, they're just one play from being in the game, and as bad as they played in the first half, Washington State really didn't capitalize on anything because they had to kick a couple field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. And we saw that last week against Stanford. And that was just Jet Toner missing 4 field goals.
Jet Toner.
I mean, it's one of my favorite names. I mean, you got to say
it's a pretty good one.
And what I saw on his uniform yesterday when they're playing Colorado, it says Toner the 5th.
There are 4 other Jet Toners?
So I did a little math. And I went back a couple generations to see. I'm like, okay, let's assume Jet Toner, who's a senior in college, is about 21 years old. 22, but let's say 21, 22. And let's assume his dad is twice that age. But maybe, he's probably older than that, but let's just minimum 20-something years older than him, right? And then his dad, his grandpa, is 20-something years older than him. His great-grandpa is 20-something years older than that, right? We got to go back 4 generations to get to the first Jet Toner. That means that somebody in 1930, born in 1920, 10, 30, I don't know, was named Jet Toner.
Yeah, he definitely got looked at funny.
Right? I mean, I don't think that was a common name back in 1920 20, but I don't.
It's not, I'm sure.
I don't have all the facts. This could be a total. It could
I'll
be
tell you, Stanford has some good names. They also got Thunderkeck,
Thunderkeck. Yeah.
which is a great name. And then of course they have Osiris St. Brown. So they've got some quality names on that squad.
I feel like the Keck family wished that their last name was Cat, so they could have named him
Thundercat.
Thundercat. I mean,
It's possible.
right? I feel like that was the name they were going for. It's close enough, and they said, "Yeah, we'll take it." So anyway, um, also 81 yards on 9 rushes for Tyler Shook.
Right.
C.J. Verdell, 18 carries, 118 yards, the 1 touchdown. He also caught 5 passes for another 36 yards. Travis Dye had 2 catches, both for touchdowns.
And I called you at the half, and I told you, because he's the one who fumbled it earlier in the game, and I told you that I was upset with him.
Yeah.
Because he fumbled the ball, and he was wearing gloves when he did it. And last year, for those of you who don't know, he had a habit of fumbling the football, and he doesn't wear gloves, so I used to always blame it kind of on that. Well, he comes out in gloves, fumbles the ball, and I call you at half, and I'm stressed about it, and I'm saying, get this guy out of here. And then he comes back out in the second half, gloves off now, and scores a couple touchdowns.
Well, I think he had warmed up by that point. You know, it's probably cold over there in Pullman, and when he started, and, you know, hands got warm, and all of a sudden he realized, you know, it was okay. A 71-yard touchdown pass and a 16-yard, 2 catches, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty good day. But it seemed like Washington State couldn't quite get it in the end zone. They had the opportunities. They couldn't convert. And I don't know if that's a product of Oregon's defense or if it's a product of – and I believe it is now because they played Stanford the same way and now Washington State, and both teams had trouble scoring. They got down the field, but they couldn't score. And it feels like that whole bend, don't break Nick Aliotti kind of defense. You know what I mean?
They look decent despite forcing their team to kind of have to play from. Well, the offense didn't put themselves in any good positions with the turnovers, but they still kind of had to give up those touchdowns, and then their team had to play. But yeah, they're coming out in the second half, making proper adjustments, and really kind of doing work. So yeah, you're right. They're driving down the field. These teams are getting all the way down to 20, 30, and then nothing. Then they just stall out.
Yeah, trailing 19-14 at the half. Oregon then goes basically 29-10 for the rest of the game, and that put it away. I mean, their offense looked so much better and more well oiled, and the turnovers in the first half. Let's admit, if they didn't have the 3 turnovers in the first half, this is probably a dominant football game.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel good about it, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, you want them to clean up some of those little things, but at the end of the day, they went on the road to a place that they haven't had a lot of success lately, and they found success. And they did it fairly convincingly for a half. Not so convincingly for the other half, but then, like you said, it was 19-14 at the half, and you still gave them the ball 3 times in your side of the field.
Yeah.
So maybe you're not too upset with all of the product and things like that. But yeah, it wasn't convincing enough, but it was pretty good.
But a win's a win in the end, and Oregon's going to play UCLA next Saturday. It was a game that was supposed to be played Friday. I think that TV is playing a big part of this because of cancellations and whatnot.
Right.
But it's going to be on TV. I don't have a time for it. They haven't scheduled the time yet, but it's going to be Oregon and UCLA next Saturday. Chip Kelly, and we'll see how that goes. But I think Oregon will be a heavy favorite to go 3-0. So hopefully, we're going to talk about more.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. So also in the Pac-12, they had the Cal ASU game was canceled because Herm Edwards tested positive, the Arizona State coach, and Cal has not played a game yet.
Yeah, that's really interesting that they haven't played a game.
Which means they're going to have 4 games. I mean, they could be there will be a 7th game scheduled, but that's during the Pac-12 championship. It's the same day. They're playing another game. So if you didn't in the first 6 games cement your spot in the Pac-12 championship game, you'll be playing somebody else on that day.
Yeah.
But also now the Arizona State game with Colorado has been canceled for next week. Already postponed because there's a bigger problem at Arizona State. There's more positive tests and contact tracing and all that stuff. There's lots of people affected. So Arizona State will also then only have 4 games.
Well, it is a party school, so. It's
true. They probably aren't missing anything. I mean, so, they won't. They're going to be happy. The student body will be happy either way. But a 4-game season is let's assume, okay, let's devil's advocate.
Devil's advocate.
Cal comes out with the 4 remaining games they have and wins every game 72-0.
Still not enough.
It's not going to be enough, right?
It doesn't matter. Like once you, I'm really having a hard time convincing myself that 7 games is enough to really understand a team and believe in their talents and things like that. But yeah, no, it's if you play 5 games or less, you're starting to get into that realm of why are we even playing at all?
And I don't think
might it be a better idea just to stop today?
Right. And we'll talk about more in a minute or two, but I think it's going to cause problems with playoff selection. But there may be bigger issues. We'll cover more in just a minute. But also in the Pac-12, yesterday, Washington got their first game in because they were scheduled to play Cal in week 1. But they got a win over Oregon State in Seattle, 27-21. They didn't look great in that win, but again, it's your first game, so you'll take the win no matter how you get it. Oregon State was in that game, played okay, but again, it's Oregon State. They just don't have the pieces to be competitive with the Washingtons, the Oregons, and Stanford and those teams. They just aren't that yet.
Those guys.
Yeah, but USC, like we talked about earlier, came from behind in the last few minutes of the game, scored 2 touchdowns in the last 6 or 7 minutes of this game, just like they did last week, to beat Arizona 34-30. This is the other ranked team in the Pac-12, a team that if you're rooting for Oregon, you need USC to keep winning.
Yeah, if they don't do so good, if they go down, we're not going to have much hope of getting to the playoff.
Because that would be the only team on Oregon's schedule that will be ranked at this point that could make it in Washington. If Washington wins, it's possible Washington could get ranked and Oregon would get another ranked team on their schedule. But right now, as it stands, the only chance they have is if the Pac-12 South champion is ranked when they play them in the championship game. Right. And I don't feel great about USC watching them 2 weeks in a row having to survive at the end.
And I definitely didn't think the teams that they were playing were teams that they should be struggling with, and yet there they were.
Arizona and Arizona State. Yeah. So I feel like they're gonna find somebody who's gonna go up bigger on them early if they are going to be slow starters like that, and they're not gonna be able to recover. So, we'll see what happens. Colorado was outscored 17-7 over the last quarter and a half, but they still hung on to beat Stanford 35-32, and Stanford is now 0-2. But that was David Mills, the quarterback highly recruited quarterback for Stanford. His Pac-12 debut. He looked okay. He looked pretty good. I don't know. They would have been a better team playing Oregon had he been able to play. He was out for COVID protocol. So I think that game would have been a little different. I still think Oregon would have beat Stanford pretty easily. So I don't think it would have made that big a difference.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's the Pac-12 in a nutshell. And the games, there hasn't been enough games. Oregon's 2-0. Washington's 1-0. Washington State, that was their first loss. They're 1-1. Colorado's 2-0 in the South. USC's 2-0 in the South. I don't think Colorado. I think that's a pretender team.
I think so.
They'll get slapped down. Utah still hasn't played a football game. So there's that.
It's such a weird year.
Yeah. So it would be nice to see, everybody play, and considering the season is so short already anyway. But it's not very often. I want one more comment about the Oregon-Washington State game. It's not very often you see a team win the turnover battle 3-0. Washington State didn't turn the ball over, and they had 421 yards of total offense, and they lost by 2 touchdowns.
Still lose, yep.
Yeah, so that tells you a little bit something about the potency of Oregon's offense. Anyway, let's move to other NCAA news of note. Let's talk about the Minnesota-Iowa game for just a minute. If anybody watched that on Saturday, with 19 seconds left in the game, Iowa is leading Minnesota 35-0. Dominated the entire game. Minnesota calls a timeout to try and score from the Iowa 4-yard line with 19 seconds left, which I feel like that's something you should do. I feel like that's a never give up. It's a lesson you're teaching your kids. We're not giving up. We're going to try and score. If I need to take a timeout to do it, I'll take a timeout to do it. Right?
I think that there's something to be said for winning with grace. And you're up big. This game's decided. It's over. It's all done.
I'm talking about
walk on.
I'm talking about Minnesota actually taking the timeout to try and score.
Yeah. Losing with grace. Sorry, is what I meant to say.
Losing with grace.
With grace.
You think you should have accepted the shutout and just gone home?
Kind of not. I mean, you want to teach fight till the end competitiveness, but
right.
At the same time, you didn't. It wasn't going to change anything.
No,
you simply did it to send a point, and it was going to be a good point for maybe your guys and a bad point for maybe other people. So it was a risk that I don't think really needed to be taken. You're going to get criticized for it. You're going to catch flack for it. And at the end of the day, when you go home, your AD is still looking at you because you just had a big loss. So it's not like it's going to get you any kudos. It wasn't like the AD was up in the box going, man, I'm going to fire this guy. Oh, that timeout? That's not a bad call.
That did it. Yeah.
That changed my mind.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to go look at Jim Harbaugh now. Kirk Ferentz, apparently, I feel maybe just took offense to the fact that they called timeout.
Yeah, I think that's all it was.
I think it is. And he wanted the shutout, I think. And that's, I get it, but it's also, that's the winning with grace part of the losing with grace part, right. Which is, you know what? The other team is trying to do everything they can to score. That's what you were doing all game long, right? And now that you're ahead, right, and you're going to win the game regardless of what happens on this play, why was that a big deal to you? Why was that all of a sudden oh my gosh, this is so important that we are going to use all 3 of our timeouts at the end of the game, ahead 35-0. That didn't make any sense to me. But here's what Kirk Ferentz had to say about that.
They called a timeout, I guess, to get a look at what we're doing or reconsider. So we just kind of wanted to make sure we got a good look at what they were doing. And no sense taking them on the bus with us, right? I think you guys were reminding me of that a couple times over the last 22 years. So figured we'd take Floyd with us and leave the timeouts here.
So I don't know. I mean, take Floyd with us, and what he's referring to is the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy. It's a big pig that Minnesota and Iowa fight over. It's a pig statue. That's because every game in the Big Ten is a rivalry apparently, and they all have a trophy. But anyway, he thought we'd take Floyd with us on the bus and leave the timeouts here. Well, I think it seems just a petulant move, like oh my gosh, you're trying to ruin my shutout. Well, I'm going to call all my timeouts and make you sit out here in the cold. I feel it was just kind of it was a bad look.
I would say if there's a winner and a loser in this scenario, it's definitely it's definitely their coach. He did not need to call that extra timeout. Again, winning with grace. You can say what you want about the emotion of losing, but if you're winning like that, come on now.
And if you wanted to call one timeout, I mean, I could get it to send a message or to realign your, who calls 3 timeouts to get a look at the defense or get a look at the offensive set? Nobody. You call one, right? They come out in an offensive set. You don't like it. You call a timeout. You readjust. They come out and change their play, or they don't. You know what I mean? And then you go. Nobody calls 3 timeouts in a row. That was intentional, and it was, I feel wrong. Yeah, Minnesota probably didn't need to call a timeout. They could have just run a play and see if they got in the end zone. I feel like you're not talking to PJ Fleck about why he called timeout, right? But we are talking about Kirk Ferentz and in a negative light, and he didn't need any more negative light. There's other issues with Iowa we won't get into today. But anyway, I don't know. I have mixed emotions about the whole thing, and I get it.
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you feel like it's a problem, then it probably is. Like you ever do that thing where it's like, oh, should I buy this or should I buy it? I was like, well, if you have to ask yourself the question, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
So I feel like that's exactly what happened here. I feel like it was 100% kind of a bonehead move.
Yeah.
But he did it anyways.
He sure did, and we get to talk about it. It's a gift to the press, is what it is, to the media. Here, look what I did. So let's change just for a second. Talk about the SEC, shall we? If you're a conspiracy theorist, you should listen up to what I'm about to tell you. The SEC canceled 4 games this weekend that were supposed to be played on Saturday. That is number 1 Alabama at LSU, number 12 Georgia at Missouri, number 5 Texas A&M at Tennessee, and number 24 Auburn at Mississippi State. What do those games have in common?
It's all garbage SEC offense.
Well, I mean, that's our opinion. However, it may be true, but I think that's opinion. No, they actually have something legitimate in common.
They're all SEC East.
They're all, SEC West. They're all They are 4 out of the 5 ranked teams in the SEC that were all going to play on the road.
Oh.
The only ranked team that played on Saturday in the SEC played at home.
I get what you're
So
getting.
all the road games for all the ranked teams, the games that they might have lost, to include number 1 Alabama at LSU, got canceled.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. I can get behind a good SEC conspiracy theory.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So
Sounds like you're saying.
I feel like I'm saying. You heard me, SEC. You know where to find me. I don't know. I mean, it's probably nothing. It's probably all COVID related. I get it, but it seems to me it stinks a little. Not like big fish stink. It's just a little bit. So yeah. Anyway, what do I know? I could be wrong. So I've been wrong before once.
Once or twice.
Let's talk about the Big Ten for a minute. You want to talk about the Big Ten?
I'm on board with talking a little bit about Michigan.
Let's briefly say that this number 9 Indiana is 4-0, and number 19 Northwestern is 4-0, and they lead their respective divisions. And I don't know if that's leaders or legends, but Indiana plays number 3 Ohio State next weekend in what will likely decide the Eastern Division champion, and Northwestern plays number 10 Wisconsin in a Western Division showdown, probably going to decide the Western Division champion. I feel like neither of those teams is going to win, and that we're going to see Ohio State, Wisconsin version whatever, right? And Wisconsin's going to be that number 7, 6, 5 team in the country. All they got to do is beat Ohio State; they'll be in the playoff, and they won't.
And they won't. Ohio State will just keep making us mad for a while.
Right. So that being said, I do want to talk about Nebraska for just a minute. Nebraska got their first win, beating Penn State 30-23. And why is that important? Penn State's 0-4.
Talk about a train wreck.
Penn State is 0-4. This is a team that was, I think, number 8 in the country at the beginning of the season. The preseason rankings were number 8. Maybe they were overrated because there was only 8 teams. I don't know. But they're 0-4. This is a team that was in contention last year, right? And the year before. And they're a good football. It's a perennial powerhouse, Penn State. They're 0-4. They are not going to have a winning record. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not great.
Because they still got to play. Anyway, we'll talk about that later, maybe. Michigan lost to Wisconsin 49-11 at home. They're 1-3.
So bad.
They're 1-3.
They're so bad.
Michigan State lost to Indiana, shut out, and Michigan State is 1-3. So here's my question. Ready?
Yeah.
Who gets fired first? Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, Scott Frost at Nebraska, James Franklin at Penn State, or Mel Tucker, who's a first-year coach at Michigan State. I'm going to give him a pass and say he probably won't be, but it's not the Michigan State football they were come to expect from Michigan State.
Yeah.
So,
it's Jim Harbaugh.
Is it?
It's 100% Jim Harbaugh. He has had the longest leash here.
When is that going to happen? Is that Ohio State?
No, I've been saying it for a while. Well, yeah, you want to see if maybe they can pull out a game against, please the fan base a little bit. But yeah, I think at the end of the year they're going to fire him unless he just has a real terrible meltdown and he's not competitive in any more games. And maybe they might pull it, but I kind of have a feeling they're kind of old heads over there and that they don't want to rock the boat in the middle of the season.
Let me just say this: they're playing at Rutgers next week in a game that I don't feel comfortable that they're going to win. But it is Rutgers, and they have a tradition of beating Rutgers. Okay, they play Penn State at home after that, and that could be a win, but we don't know. It's two of the worst teams in the division. Right. And then they play Maryland, and Maryland. If you haven't watched Maryland, I think that Taulia Tagovailoa is way better than his brother.
I agree. He's been fantastic.
He has been dazzling with a Maryland team. He's not playing at Alabama with first round draft picks surrounding him.
It's not 5 stars everywhere.
No, this is Maryland, and he's doing some fantastic things. I think he's way better. I'm not saying that Maryland is better than Alabama, but I am saying they're dangerous with him at quarterback. But they got to play Rutgers, Penn State, Maryland, and then Ohio State at Ohio State. Assuming, let's just devil's advocate again. Let's just say Michigan is 1-6 when they play at Ohio State. Will he survive through that period? And if he does, and they beat Ohio State and knock Ohio State out of the college football playoff, does he get another year?
Probably not.
That wouldn't be enough.
Probably not. No, I don't think so. I think that the things that are happening here are they're too egregious. The issues are too much of a problem.
Egregious. I like that.
They're too egregious.
At best, if they win out, they'll be 5-3. Okay, but I just feel like that he's been underperforming, and you can't just blame it on him. It's the team, but he's the guy. The buck stops here, right? He's the guy. So
Right.
you can't fire the quarterback. You're going to fire the coach. So
yeah, the scholarship athletes just get benched. They're not going to get fired.
Right. Yeah, and then they just transfer to somewhere else. So
You just transfer somewhere else.
which is a whole other topic. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
So okay, Mark D'Antonio retired from Michigan State last year, and Mel Tucker came over from Colorado to be the head coach. I feel like Mel Tucker was he inherited a Colorado team that was pretty good.
Yeah, they were kind of on the uptick.
Right. So he didn't really do anything with them to make them a lot better, but he managed to get wins, which was enough to impress Michigan State apparently, and go, oh, well, here's your move up to the big leagues. You're going to be at Michigan State, which is quote unquote an improvement over Colorado.
Right.
I guess. I don't know. And they're not performing very well either. So I don't know. But it is his first year, so I'm sure they'll give him at least that 2-year leash, right?
Yeah, I think that I think that he'll be fine for a little bit. I think Harbaugh's the guy.
Okay, so let's talk about the college football playoff.
Okay.
Just for a minute.
Okay. It's early.
If for some reason the Pac-12 champion is 5-0,
Okay.
can they get in?
Maybe. Probably. I'm going to say probably not, and that'll depend on what everyone else does. But maybe.
What happens? So in most years when this happens, right? You get down to the end of the season and you've got 1, 2, 3 maybe undefeated teams,
Right.
but the season is so short for the Big Ten and the Pac-12 especially. What happens if we have, I don't know, what if there's 8 undefeated teams? Cincinnati's in there. Are they the first team from the group of 5 to be in the college football playoff? I mean,
And the question then is how do you value the wins? Does
Right.
Oregon getting 5 or 6 wins in a season better than these 8 or 9 or 10 wins that you have in a lesser conference?
right, because the way Liberty's going, they're going to be undefeated. They've already won 8 games.
The committee's been really silent about what they're going to be looking at with this whole thing.
Right.
They haven't said anything, and that's because there isn't much to say because you don't really know. You're kind of hoping it all sorts itself out and that teams lose and you don't even have to make the decision. But every single year that doesn't happen. Every single year you have to make a decision between 2 teams and someone gets hosed.
If you're looking for excitement, Tuesday night is the release of the first CFP rankings, the 17th. And then every Tuesday thereafter, Sunday, December 20th is selection day, and that is the day after everyone plays their conference championship games, supposedly, provided they do play their conference championship games on those days. Further scheduled, the national semifinals are the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, and those are on New Year's Day. And then on January the 11th is the national championship game. I don't know. Provided no one's got a COVID outbreak. What happens if we pick 4 teams and then one of them has a COVID outbreak 2 days before the semifinal?
I saw that the other day. Well, because there's no fans, it's pretty easy to reschedule. Usually the big issue is scheduling.
I guess.
Is you have a bunch of fans and things like that who bought tickets, bought hotels. That's not going to happen. So if you have to bump a game back a week, it's not the end of the world.
In reality, you've got to bump both games back.
Because of unfair advantage, one team gets more rest
Correct.
or something like that.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's not a real thing in 2020.
They're going to do it. They'll do it.
They did it. Baseball didn't matter. Basketball didn't matter. Like no one cares about that unfair advantage. They'll be fine. Also, I'm a big fan that too much rest is a problem.
I agree. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they won't let one of these teams play on New Year's Day and then one of them play on the 8th and then have the national championship moved back to the whatever January 15th or the 22nd or whatever. That's going to start interfering with NFL.
What you're saying is you don't think that they're going to want to engage college football fans for a couple extra weeks, keep those message boards going, keep the what's it called, the internet traffic up. Like,
Maybe.
It's a good deal for them.
Maybe.
I think it's a good deal for them.
I'm interested to see bowl season in general. I think it's going to be a disaster. Just FYI.
I kind of agree.
I'm looking forward to it.
I think we got a rough year ahead of us. That's for sure.
Right? It's pretty incredible. All right, so that's all the college football we're going to talk about today. Second half of the show brought to you by Boss Kitty Hand-Dyed Yarns. Go to bosskittyshop.com for your yarns, notions, and Boss Kitty merchandise. I can't speak tonight. I don't know.
It happens.
Or pick up a bosskittyshop.com gift card. Use the code Wear Your Mask at checkout. Free shipping on orders of $50 or more. It's awesome. And then tune into bosskittylive.com at 6 every Monday and Wednesday and 11 a.m. every other Sunday. And they do yarn craft. If you don't know what that is, they're going to actually make a project on the show. You can watch it. They play games. They have trivia. They give away stuff. If you know someone who's a knitter, and you do, there's someone in your family who knits, who does crafts.
Unfortunately, we all know someone.
Everybody has someone. Let them know about it. Make them tune in. That's bosskittylive.com for the show. Boss Kitty Shop for the merchandise and the stuff. Boss Kitty, yarn so boss, you'll knit your pants. So we're going to talk about the NFL in the second half of the show because that's what we do.
It felt fun.
So for some reason that one's not wanting to work. Let's hang on just a second here. Let me see what I got here. Let's talk about the showdown today between Tua and Justin.
What a showdown.
I mean, it was a lackluster showdown, in my opinion. The Dolphins defeated the Chargers 29-21. Neither quarterback was brilliant. Right. I guess let's put it that way, and it once again reinforced that Justin Herbert's on the wrong team. Yeah,
it's so funny because I felt like this was such a good situation for him to go to a team that has a lot of weapons and stuff like that, but for some reason they're just not getting it done early in games. And they're having to come from behind. It's just not a good look for him. But he's trying.
They're having a hard time protecting him. They're having, he's under pressure quite a bit. That has a lot to do with it. And just today, for example, Herbert 20 of 32, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, but he was sacked twice. Tua, on the other hand, 15 of 25, 169 yards and 2 touchdowns, no sacks. He was not. I mean, part of that's mobility. Herbert's pretty mobile. I mean, he's not. He's not slow of foot, for sure.
Very first passing play of the game, he takes one step and has got 5 guys on him. It was, he's working against his team sometimes.
He is. You're right. It was rough. I mean, it was a rough day for the Chargers all the way around, but they were in the game. They just couldn't quite, get over the hump and get that turnover they needed and get the score that they needed. But long story short, Tua wins this one. But it makes the Dolphins 6-3, by the way.
Yeah, are they threats?
They're a half game behind the Bills, who lost today to. We're going to talk about that in a minute too, because that was fantastic. But they're only a half game back of the Bills. Is Tua a better quarterback, or is it just that the Dolphins are playing great football? Because his numbers are not great. They're okay. They're good. I mean, good. He doesn't seem like he's doing those things that, I don't know, Kyler Murray does to escape. Or I mean, he's doing enough, and I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to judge because I'm a Justin Herbert fan, and I watch Tua and I watch his brother, who I know is better than him, and I can't wait for him to play in the NFL. But I just feel like something's missing with Tua that I don't know yet. I don't know if that's because of the Dolphins or if it's because of Tua.
Probably a little of both. I think that Tua is really good. I think the Dolphins are still missing an element. I don't know what it is, but they're missing it. But overall, man, they benched Fitzy, and I didn't like it. I thought it was a bad move because I thought he was playing really well. But man, so their offense is rolling a little better.
Yeah, and their offense has been pretty good, pretty good all season actually. But they beat. To be honest now, let's be fair, they beat the 49ers back when the 49ers were like half a team.
Right.
They beat the Jets, and everyone has beaten the Jets. And they beat the Chargers, who are now 2-6. And they did have a win at Arizona last week that was fairly impressive. That was a big win. And then they beat the Rams. And the Rams are one of those teams, while they're 6-3, that's a hit and miss team. You don't know who's showing up that day, which Jared Goff is coming to play. Yeah, so I don't know that one. I feel like I don't know how good the Dolphins are. The next two games are winnable at the Broncos, at the Jets.
Okay, let's not just make fun of the Broncos.
Their next three games are winnable because they play the Bengals after that. So they've got three more games in a row where they could be 9-3, and then we'll see. They play the Chiefs, and then they play the Patriots, but the Patriots are not the Patriots of old. They play at the Raiders and at the Bills to close out the season.
They have a pretty tough little schedule, don't they?
At the end, the last four games are going to be difficult, but the next three, like I said, are totally winnable. They can be 9-3, and then they only got to win one of those games probably to get into a playoff spot. So, and that's the Patriots, is what I'm seeing. But anyway, maybe the Raiders. I don't know, but we'll see. I don't know. It's a lot of football to be played. I don't know exactly how good they're going to be. Nobody really knows that yet.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Yeah, let's talk about Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay rolled to another win today.
After they got rolled last week.
Yeah, and how up and down. I mean, I don't know. I feel I'm sitting here watching Tom Brady, and I have him on my fantasy football team just for transparency purposes.
So you're super biased.
However, he's on the bench. I haven't played him, and you know why? Because one day he goes out and has me 30 points, and the next day he goes out and gets me 3. And how do you justify I don't know what I'm getting. Which quarterback am I getting? He's played pretty good all year, but I mean, last week was so bad.
It was very bad.
It was very bad. And then this week
we're hitting a nice mid-season stride for senior quarterbacks that are having issues.
Yeah.
Drew Brees is having some issues. Tom Brady's having some issues. Russell Wilson's having some issues.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be a rough little mid-season stretch.
And that could be age. I mean, that's another thing that you got to factor in. It could be age. This game broke open basically with Tampa Bay and Carolina in the third quarter, about midway through. Ronald Jones, the second, 98-yard touchdown run. He's the fourth player in NFL history to have a touchdown run of 98 or more yards. And they broke. It was 20-17 Tampa Bay, and then they score and made it 26-17, and then the final score was 46-23. That game kind of broke the back of Carolina. That play, sorry. And
what a great game.
Yeah. Anyway, but I mean, 98 yards on one run, you're gonna have your numbers are gonna be okay. Jones finished 23 carries, 192 yards on a touchdown. And Brady was, Brady, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. Can we also say that with the addition of Antonio Brown, they're gonna who do you defend? Is it Godwin? Is it Evans? Is it Brown? Or is it Gronkowski?
Well, fortunately for all of us, they haven't figured out how to put them all in the field at the same time yet.
That's true.
But as a general rule, I still think Mike Evans is their best all-around receiver.
Yeah.
So you still focus on him first. Godwin you cover with safeties deep. And then Antonio Brown, you just kind of hope that he's still a little out of his mind. And maybe isn't focused enough or something. You just hope. But then, yeah, they have Gronk. You still get hosed.
We're not saying he's crazy, but he might be crazy.
I'm not saying it's crazy. He hasn't been right since he got hit in the head at Pittsburgh.
Whatever. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about the NFC East, our favorite division in football.
Favorite division, the clown.
And why is it the favorite division in football, Parker?
Because it's a dumpster fire. And you can't stop looking at it.
You can't stop watching it. I watched both games. Well, there was only one game. There were 2 games involving NFC East teams today, and one of them was compelling, as the only way I could describe it. And
it's an interesting descriptor.
So the 3-4-1 Eagles were playing on the road at the 2-7 New York Giants, right? And the Eagles are in first place in the division at 3-5-1, or 3-4-1 is what they were going in, and the Giants made them look bad. I mean,
they really did. The Eagles are another fake team. Like I don't trust their productivity either.
Well, the Eagles didn't need any help looking bad. They definitely don't need any help looking bad, but they didn't look like they could put it together. They didn't look like they could do anything. Carson Wentz, 208 yards, no touchdowns, right? But Daniel Jones didn't either. throw a touchdown pass, but they had a couple touchdown runs, 3 of them, 2 from Wayne Gallman. Daniel Jones had that 34-yard run in the first quarter on the first drive.
Yeah.
That looked really good. He looked fast with the replay. I didn't see it in live time, but I saw the replay. He looked like he was blazing by people. I didn't know he had that kind of speed.
I love this description of Daniel Jones looked fast.
He looked fast. I'm not saying he was, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes when you see a guy and you see him running, you go, wow, he looks fast. He's not all that fast, but it just for some reason he was blowing by the Eagle defenders. I don't know. It was not a great football game, but it was still compelling to watch a team that's 2-7 get within a half a game of first place in their division. Because
compelling football.
Because the division is so bad. In the other game in that division, Washington lost to Detroit barely. Right? At Detroit. They go on the road at Detroit and they lost 30-27. They scored 17 points in the fourth quarter to come back, only to lose on a field goal, a last-second field goal by Matt Prater. 59-yard field goal, no less, to win the game.
That Matt Prater's good.
That Matt Prater. He had 3 today. 2 of them over 50. One was 53 and one was 59. So if he's on your fantasy football team, well done.
Congratulations. He was on my bench today.
Well done, you. Was he?
Yeah.
Is he your backup kicker?
He's my backup kicker. I started Blankenship.
Rodrigo Blankenship out of Georgia.
Hey, he got me 11 points, and Prater had 16, so I wasn't too mad.
Goggle guy?
Goggle guy.
Somebody
needs to hook that dude up with. How is Oakley not all over this? The first guy with glasses?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Somebody needs to be. Yeah, he needs to have that. Yeah, that sponsorship deal.
Lens Crafters should be going nuts to sign this guy.
But this is a 4-5 Detroit team playing at home, barely beating a 2-6. Well, they're now 2-7 Washington football team, which we still haven't come up with a name for, by the way.
We don't need to. I think I'm actually kind of settling into Washington football team.
But they're going to change it next year. They're going to get a nickname, and then we're going to have to redo it.
You shouldn't. Just leave it.
Just leave it. It's bad. It's bad, and leave it bad.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. All right. So let's talk about Thursday night's game. I thought the Titans were a team. I was.
What a way to phrase that. I thought they were somebody.
I was sold that the Tennessee Titans from last year were going to carry over into this year, and they were going to be a football team. They were going to be a force to be reckoned with. And clearly, Thursday night's game told me that I was wrong. Playing at home, they lost to the Indianapolis Colts 34-17 to basically relinquish control of the division to Indianapolis. And they didn't. It was 17-10 Titans after Jonnu Smith had the 1-yard touchdown run. Jonnu Smith, by the way, is tight end. If you didn't watch that play, that was anyway. We'll talk about it later. But then, of course, your boy Blankenship kicks a field goal with no time left in the half, and it's 17-13. And then nothing. The Titans just went silent. Their offense was non-existent. Tannehill finished the day 147 yards. 147 yards passing from a guy who had a great year last year and the first few games of this year. And now all of a sudden, is Indianapolis' defense that good?
I picked them up at the beginning of the season in terms of fantasy, and they've never let me down. So I think they're actually pretty darn good.
Now, all right. I don't believe you. Is that a product of the teams they've played? Because the reason I say that is because their defense has played Jacksonville, right?
Yeah.
Minnesota, who has Dalvin Cook, but I think he was out in week 2. I'm not 100% certain that's true. Don't quote me. The Jets, the Bears, who don't score a lot anyway. The Browns, who they lost to. They gave up 32 points to the Browns. The Bengals, the Lions. I feel like the Indianapolis team has had a pretty good schedule for their defense to be good. Are they just getting more confident because they're actually winning football games?
I feel like you left out a whole bunch of teams there when you're talking about bad teams. You didn't say Cowboys. You didn't say...
They haven't played the Cowboys.
I know. That's my point, is that there's a much worse tier of teams
than the Jets.
There. And they didn't play those. Well, they had one. They had one. You're right. They had one.
Hold on.
But there's another tier. There's another level of awful teams that they didn't play. Are the Bengals really bad? debatable. I think they're tanking to try and get another draft pick. Are some of these teams really bad?
So Trevor can be
Debatable.
the backup.
No, they're not taking for
I
that. Well,
know.
they're not going to. Who
I
might they
mean-
want? They might have someone to protect Burrow.
I mean, if you had the number 1 pick, you could draft Trevor and then trade him.
You just hold it for hostage.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you got another tier that's worse than the Jaguars and Jets, please tell me.
I wouldn't call the Jaguars that bad this year. They've been that bad, but they're not that bad this year. They're pulling a Chargers. Are the Chargers that bad? Because they only got 1 win.
Chargers
they're
have
not.
They should. The Chargers have
2 wins. They should have 6 wins.
Right, but they've been in those games. They've been in those. The Jaguars.
Jacksonville's been in a lot of games.
Oh. Okay, they lost to the Dolphins by 18. They lost to the Texans by 16. They lost to the Lions by 18. They lost to the Chargers by 10. Those are not great. They lost to the Titans by 3. That was a close game. They lost to the Texans by 2 and the Packers by 4.
So then your logic is that Indianapolis defense is not actually that good. They just play garbage.
I'm saying.
And yet they stopped this team that you thought was a team.
Yeah. Well,
they did well in that
we're
game.
Garbage.
So.
Let's not back up now. I didn't say we're garbage. I just said.
No, that's me. Obviously, exaggerating the scenario. You think that they've been playing terrible teams or less than stellar teams or whatever descriptor for not satisfactory you would like. You've been playing these teams, but then last night, a team that you thought was legit, they played them.
Yeah.
Sorry, not last night. They played them. They did just fine. And
yeah, they did.
They're pretty good. I think that people are sleeping on them because people don't know how to feel about their offense, so that just kind of carries over to their defense.
Okay.
It's the Phillip Rivers effect.
I'm going to say this. Their schedule from here on out is not favorable. They play the Packers. They get the Titans again. Texans, Raiders, Texans, at the Steelers, and then the Jaguars. So there's some tests in there. I will tell you how good I feel after they play the Packers next week.
Fair enough.
That's going to be a better litmus test of this team. They may win 9 games. You're absolutely right. But I feel like when you have the Texans and Jaguars in your division, there's 4 wins.
Probably.
Okay, so, and then you have the Jets on your schedule. There's 5 wins. Now you only need to win 4 games. So
the Texans were also supposed to be a 10-win team, 10 to 12-win team.
What happened?
So really the only bad team that you were supposed to play this year was the Jaguars. And somehow that's just not what's going on.
But Houston is not good. They're 2-7.
No, they're not. No, they're tanking now. They're tanking.
Oh, you think so? There's too many teams tanking.
Absolutely.
How can they all tank?
Once you
get
get below 5 games, or once you get about 5 games back on everybody, yeah, there's no point in doing well. What is it going to get you?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that.
You're not going to get a high five for not making the playoffs, so just tank, get your draft pick.
There
are too many teams tanking, but it happens every year.
Can I get a high five? Anyway, all right, one more game to talk about. That was late game here this afternoon. Arizona and Buffalo. With 11 seconds left on the clock, ball on the Buffalo 43